Okay, so what is this? What is this thing called?
This is your dang. What did you say earlier?
Reconstructing the Kid Maestro Code. We're here at Shangri-La. My name is Kid Maestro. I'm a producer, an artist, beat maker with a company creative storytelling label called Unapologetic here in Memphis, Tennessee, and here with good pals, and I just wanted to show y'all some of the records that just kind of mean a lot to me, that are part of the DNA of Kid Maestro today. Now, this is not everything, but I don't know. I was very shocked and thrilled to see some of these like advanced copy radio junts of artists that like literally made me want to do what I want to do. So my family, like, I'm originally from Chicago. My mom and pretty much all of my like immediate family before I were Kanye West fans. That's collectively our favorite artist.
I feel that.
Especially, back in the day.
I grew up like that too.
Yeah, like in any family gathering, like we're gonna put on late or any of these shots and just quote it from top to bottom. That's like almost tradition. It was actually the album after this, Graduation, that kind of made me be like, all right, I think, because I've been wanting to do music all for my whole life, but like that album was like, oh, it's possible. And I think after picking a lot, when we go through some of these other records, one of the common themes I'm seeing is I was always interested in producers who are also artists. And that's Kanye West's main thing.
Yeah, that man was making beats for like how many years before he became an artist?
Yeah, and had to fight to do it.
Yes, but it made him so much colder as an artist because then he could convey the ideas that he wanted much better.
Exactly. So that's a common thing. We'll come back to that. Yeah. So yeah, man, seeing this was like, dang, right? It's just anytime I see like these classic Kanye West albums, it just takes me back. I'm talking in the hot sauce, by the way. This was, Desire's idea.
That's the high tone hot sauce too.
Yeah, I mean, shout out. High Tone is a legendary venue here in Memphis. If you have never been there, make sure you figure that out.
That's right.
The next joint that I found that was part of this joint, this Timbaland, "Give It to Me" with Nelly Furtado and Justin Timberlake. When I was in middle school, so this was 2000. So this probably came out. The promotional jump probably came out in 2006. 2006 and 2007 when Shock Value came out. And that album was, again, this was even more so than Kanye West, because Kanye West, I learned that he was a producer, right? And was an artist. Timbaland, I knew he was a producer and came out with his own album. And it was fire. And like listening to this album, this and not Justify was the one that Future Sex Love Sounds by Justin Timberlake. His production on that like really showed me the expanse of creativity and sound selection and like beatboxing. Like I feel like Timbaland prides himself on being the most creative producer.
He's gonna incorporate all kinds of like cool things that you just wouldn't expect. Like the baby crying on that Aaliyah sample is nuts.
He's just very unafraid. And when I was impressionable, figuring out what I liked and what my sound might be, you know what I mean? I don't think I was that intentional at this age, but this was like you can hear it in like the way I choose sounds, my drum patterns. Like this album, Shock Value, was like the beginning of that, and this was the single that led that album. So yeah, this just brought me back to middle school. So yeah, super important. Okay, now we got this jump. This is Flying Lotus, You're Dead. To me, this is the culmination of all these albums that I've been talking about. Like, to me, this is an example of an artist that did it. Like, this is, for people like me, for artists like me, producer artists, this is like a North Star. This is a producer who was so unapologetic about their artistic vision and ran with it and became the blueprint for what it means to be a successful producer artist. Like this is the blueprint. And when I first heard this album, Flying Lotus, I think I moved here. It was like 2013 when I moved here to Memphis, and before that, people like Timbaland and people like Kanye West, like those producer artists were all I was exposed to, right? They made the beats and they also happened to rap. And I eventually moved out of wanting to rap more into the producer space, right? But I still wanted to be an artist in some sort of way. Then I discovered the EDM scene. So these are like people like Skrillex and Deadmau5. These are the first people I saw performing beats, basically.
Yeah.
So that was the closest thing to a producer artist who didn't rap. You know what I'm saying? That I was exposed to. So
showing you what's possible.
You know, that was the jump.
Yeah.
In come guys like Flying Lotus. And Flying Lotus, I guess you can, I mean, it is electronic, but it was just so much more. It was further hip hop based, and you know, Flying Lotus definitely wasn't the first to be this kind of artist, but he was the first I was exposed to, and it was this album, and it was challenging, to be honest, because
like challenging to listen to and process.
Yeah, like it was just so out of my norm.
That's what innovation is.
Yeah, I was like, it actually took me a little while. Like there was like a few tracks that was like, okay, I feel this, but some of it was just a little bit beyond me at the time.
I feel that. But then when you come back to it later, you understand it, and it hits you, it resonates so much deeper.
When I listened to some of his earlier stuff, Cosmogramma, Los Angeles, and then eventually later I found like all his old beat tapes. You know? And then you realize, oh, this is the guy that was doing all that Adult Swim stuff. It's funny. But yeah, just discovering like this is just my North Star, and this was the first album of his, or first piece of music that I knew I was hearing of Flying Lotus. Yeah, this is the blueprint. We got one of his fathers, Madlib was what these guys I was talking about before I knew about him. Madlib is probably one of the most innovative producers to ever live. Talking about the greatest, like people mention Jay Dilla, right? His brother in that, to me, is Madlib. And Madlib is the father to people that I pattern myself after, like Flying Lotus and guys like Knowledge and you know, all these producer artists that we hear about now, like followed after Jay Dilla and Madlib.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And Madlib, the reason I'm so inspired by him is because his sound was so, I want to say unapologetic, you know what I'm saying, shameless plug, but it was just free. Like when you listen to Madlib's beats over time, like you listen to all his projects, he has so many projects, you hear freedom in the samples, in the way he processed the samples, the beat making process. It's just freedom. And I got put on to Madlib. Shout out to my brother Amik Mad Beats, who introduced me to Mad Villainy, the album by MF Doom, and Madlib doing all the beats. And I was like, yo, this guy, it resonated with where I saw myself creatively, probably the closest to anything I had heard at the time, or where I wanted to go. Like Kanye West and these Timbaland and all these guys were the things that influenced me and are a part of me. But Madlib represented where I was trying to go before I knew that it existed. And I was like, oh my gosh, people listening to guys like this, I can do it. I can do this. I can make it.
Absolutely.
And he was so prolific. He's probably the most prolific producer out there, or one of the most. Maybe second to like a guy like Jay Dilla. I don't know. There's a lot of prolific people, but
he's one of the ones.
Yeah, he's one of the ones, and he just has so many. And I feel like I resonate with that motto. Like, so, you know what I'm saying? Just cook up mad joints. You can't help but be great.
That's right.
All right. So when I was a kid, I was gifted an MP3 player. I don't know if y'all remember what those are.
Oh, yes. You know I had a pink one with a little USB port on the end.
Mine was a USB port.
Mine was too? Yeah. Oh, I had all the joints on that. I'm so sorry I lost it.
So my mom, who is a huge influence on my musical taste, both my mom and my dad, she had this album, debuted by the Dave Brubeck Quartet, called Time Out.
Yes.
And I believe all of these songs on here are in a different time signature. The most famous one is, of course, Take 5, right? Like everybody knows that. But like she had a CD. I put it on my computer, put it on my MP3 player, and I was just listening to this junk because I love all kinds of music.
That's amazing.
And from like 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, like this is just what I was listening to, was this album. But yeah, this is just a part of the DNA, and it's funny now because like you'll hear a lot of my production ends up being in some sort of odd time signature, and like it's a goal for me that whenever possible, if I can make something that's not in a normal, like, it's like kind of like an internal goal that if I can make something that's in an odd time signature or an abnormal loop bar count, but it not feel hard to listen to, is still palatable, and still like groovy, that's a personal victory for me. And I feel like the start of that was listening to these on here.
I dig that.
Yeah, well, time out. And the final one is the Fugees, the score, right? Okay, so the Fugees, the score. This one is super special to me because, first of all, Praz, Miss Lauryn Hill, Wyclef, all legends, and this is a legendary album. But
yes, sir,
I hadn't heard it till I was like 25 or something like that.
I feel that.
And for whatever reason, like I just never really heard it. And I had heard songs on there, but
you never listened to it front to back.
Yeah, I didn't know it was the Fugees. Like, ready or not, here I come. Like,
yeah, you kind of come up listening to those songs, and then you find out
who it was. And so, but it's interesting. So I never listened to this junk. And for those of you who don't know, I'm one of I do playback for Miss Lauryn Hill. And my man Da Vinci, who has been her playback engineer for over a decade, who brought me on, we got the call that the Fugees was getting back together, and so I flew out to Jersey to start working on this stuff. And the first time I was listening to this album was on the plane ride to go and meet them and work on their show.
That's incredible. I can't imagine how that felt.
And so then like I'm down there like getting the instrumentals and like finding the original samples and remaking stuff. I'm getting to learn this album in a very unique way. Most people in the world have heard this when it, what I'm saying? Yeah. And my first time hearing it was wrapped up in, like, I really got to break it down. I got to hear where these things were coming from, and it was all these new arrangements, and I was building the set, and we were doing all this stuff with these world-class musicians and this legendary group of people. And it wasn't the first time I met Miss Hill, but the first time, I was working with her, that was right before COVID and everything got shut down. And so the re-up was the Fugees tour. And that's how I learned about this album. I got to learn it with the Fugees. So it's special because meeting them and seeing how they work in person, especially Miss Hill, just kind of changed my outlook on myself and creativity. Miss Hill is one of those people who like is 100% aware of how much her gift is a gift, from God, and she carries it. She carries so much personal responsibility and weight and care with that gift. And she knows she's here to impact and touch people, and she has a message. And the seriousness in which she takes that is so inspiring. And it's just inspired me to take my gift just as seriously. That has been this first episode of whatever this is. Your first episode of Crate Digging with Shangri-La and Friends. My name is Friends, aka Kid Maestro, aka the Tajin Guide. And I just wanted to make sure y'all know about our app. The Unapologetic World app is where everybody in Unapologetic, including myself, drops creativity. I got a lot of music, beat tapes. I've been dropping a beat tape every week up to this point, and continue to do so, or I plan to continue to do so. So make sure you download the Unapologetic World app. It's available for iOS and Android app stores. Stay creative, stay godly. I'll see y'all out.
Peace.